Thank you. Wow, it's been so amazing to share all of the journeys that we've all been together, and it really, I think this community tonight for me feels like home, and thank you, Kieran, for putting that idea, because I will really carry that with me. When I was thinking about this talk, and I think probably we've heard this a little bit from all the speakers, I kind of went, milestones? What milestones? I haven't really done anything this year. And so I kind of had to dig deep, and I ranted to my family who's here supporting me tonight, and they kind of just rolled their eyes at me and left me to it, as they usually do. And so I kind of had to come up with my own idea of what I've done and kind of think about the journey that I've been on, and I realised that the last time I was here was in May 2017, and wow, what a roller coaster. So before I launch into my journey, and I think like Brittany, I'm not very, comfortable. This is not a comfortable feeling to be sharing the successes, because I do it for others and I lift others up. It's not really about me. And so my word for this year probably is becoming. So there's a lot of expectations when you think about milestones. There's a lot of expectations from everybody else. There's a lot of expectations around your age, and you kind of feel like you're ticking down to some deadline, and you got to graduate university, get a job, buy a house, get married, have kids. I don't have a lot of those milestones, and I don't really want to, and I'm happy in that space. And so I just wanted to share with you some of my milestones. So that's my home country, where I was born and brought up, and then I moved here and grew up in Auckland. I now call Auckland home. And the milestones for me, as a migrant woman of colour in New Zealand, the milestones for me were automatically different to those around me. And, it was things like making new friends, building a community to fill the family that we no longer had here, and a support system. And, the feeling of constantly, when we first moved, every year not knowing whether we'd be able to stay here. And that feeling about a year ago, the relief of seeing that piece of paper that legitimized the fact that I felt like this place was home, and that I was giving back already, and I was giving back to this community because it was my home. And so with these milestones, it has really taught me that it's different, and I don't have to stick to those expectations. So because there are expectations, though, and as any child of a first-generation migrant would know, there is a lot of pressure, and not pressure that's put outwardly on you, but pressure to make sure that the sacrifices your parents have made mean something, that you're living up to something that means something, and also expectations of myself, that I've been so fortunate to be here, that I have to give back, and I'm driven by that. And so I make a lot of plans. I'm a planner. There's a 3-month plan, there's a 3-year plan, etc. And as you know, best laid plans don't really, they never really work out how you think it might. And this year for me, I really intentionally broke apart a lot of pieces of my life. There were a lot of hard decisions. There was a lot of letting go of the things and even people who weren't enabling me to thrive. And so this is, I guess, my year of becoming that I'd love to share with you. So I guess one of my first milestones was this here. So the picture on the right here, my right, is a campaign that I lost, and the left here is one that I won. But the one that is a milestone for me is the one that I lost, because it was the first time that I did any public speaking, and there were about 400 people in that lecture theatre, and I didn't know because I was walking down the stairs and following everybody, and I was terrified and they were trembling, and then I did it again for 3 days, and I've done it quite a lot this year, so I thought I'd share it with you. And what that taught me really was this quote here that I kind of live by is, bite off more than you can chew and then chew like hell. It's just this idea that you can do anything that you want to. You can jump in the deep end and you will survive, because you've got the grit, you've got the perseverance in you and the courage to keep going. So with that spirit, after MUV Talks in July 2017, I was selected as the only delegate from New Zealand to be part of JCI's International Leadership Academy. So they select one individual from each JCI country who think that there's going to be a leader in their national organisation. So we did crazy things like jump on broken glass and try to karate chop this wooden board. So in that photo, what you can't see is that I was crying a lot that day, and I'd kind of tried to karate chop that board too many times without breaking it. So yeah. But the thing that this milestone really taught me was that just being who I was, being in that space, going from that migrant background of almost being apologetic for those two identities that I keep straddling between two cultures, being in that space as a leader, fully acknowledging both parts of my identity, all parts of my identity, and the full authenticity of myself. And so I came back to New Zealand no longer apologetic for who I was. And then I was lucky enough, so privileged to be nominated as a Woman of Influence for the 2017 New Zealand Women of Influence Awards. And, you know, I was there with all of these women who I thought were amazing, and I kind of still feel like I'm an imposter on that list. And so it's really doing people like my little sister and so many of my supporters proud, being able to say that I can do this and so can you, and so can everyone in this room, and so that's why I do this. I don't do it for the recognition. In November 2017, I was elected as the national president of JCI. We're an 86-year-old organisation this year, so it's an incredible privilege, as well as that chain that has all the names of the national presidents since 1932. It's very heavy, and so for me, I'm ready to give it up, and we've got the national president taking over in the room as well, Anton. Good luck to you next year. For me, the milestones aren't what we've achieved as a national organisation. It's really the trust and the faith that my team has put in me, and that keeps me going, and that keeps me doing the things that I do. So in that kind of theme of becoming, I reminded myself of this quote as I was going into 2018. I still seek to make people comfortable, and I felt like I was still kind of getting used to letting that go. And so this year has been a lot of letting that go, being kind of fully authentic in myself. And I'm running out of time, so I'll speed through all of this this year. But so one of the things where I felt really fully authentic, completely myself, was speaking at the International Women's Day to the Auckland Regional Migrant Services. And that was a room that I don't speak to often. I'm in the corporate space. I often speak to the influencers because I want to influence them to do something for the communities that I care about. But this was so meaningful because it was the most diverse room I'd spoken to. And these were the young women, the people that I do this for. And then I jumped on a plane the next day to Bangkok, where I was representing New Zealand as one of 4. So these are the only 4 women national presidents this year in the Asia Pacific region, which is ridiculous, and we should be changing it. So I guess the fight never really ends, and the becoming is a journey across the world, and we can all kind of be part of that becoming in your authenticity for whatever your cause is and whatever your passion is. I put this in here. I'll skip over this really quickly. As I said, I'm kind of over time. But July 2018, I turned 27. And I was also invited to share my story. And then this is cool for a behind-the-scenes shot, because that's what milestones are for me. And it was really uncomfortable, and it's kind of that going back to that thing of sharing your story is important because it might inspire someone. And we've all inspired each other in this room today, so keep doing it. September 2018, given back in March I spoke to the most diverse audience that I'd spoken to. This was the least diverse audience that I'd spoken to. And I don't know if you can see, but I was the only person of colour in that room, and one of a handful of women. So that was interesting. This is the JCI alumni from the 1960s. I'd say backwards. And so that was an interesting room to speak with. And taking these experiences, I represented JCI New Zealand and Australia. And all of these kind of being present in all of these rooms and being myself and fully unapologetically myself, I always remind myself of this. Stand tall in your tūranga waiwai, your standing place. Know yourself, always be authentic to yourself. It is difficult, and I know this. It's been that year of kind of taking things apart, but if you're yourself, you know that you go home to you, you are who you want to be, and you know that you're making the difference that you want to be making. And so I walked onto this stage in front of over 4,000 people from around the world in Goa, India, earlier this month, with the New Zealand flag, as someone who's never felt quite able to embrace that part of my identity, and I really embraced that. And I'm here today as someone who was born in the Maldives, who carried the New Zealand flag and feel a Kiwi and still feel able to connect those parts of my identity and connect with young women of colour, people of diverse experiences, and feel able to be fully authentically myself. And so I'll leave you with this quote from Michelle Obama in Becoming. I'm going to speed through. The last thing is stop and smell the roses, because that's the most important thing to do. Stop and smell the roses for yourself. Celebrate all of you here tonight, and stop and smell the roses for the people that have been there through that journey. My mum, my biggest champion, who's always there, who was there at my last MUV talk, always there through the tears, to the anger and the rants. My little sister, who's always championed me, Laura Powley Collat, so I was kind of following my journey and being able to support me. And obviously my dad, who's not here a lot, but I can feel his spirit always championing me on. So thank you so much.